It's not the big purchases that ruin you. It's the ones no one talks about. It started with something small, a new kitchen gadget. Then, a subscription he forgot to mention. Then, concert tickets she found on the statement. Not because of the money, but because he didn't say. "It's not a big deal," he said. But it was. Not because of the price tag, because of the silence. That's how the quiet war begins in marriages over 40. Not with dramatic arguments or luxury cars, but with unspoken spending, tiny betrayals dressed as independence. One partner makes a choice, the other finds out later. Not through a conversation, but through a notification. And suddenly, a line shifts, not just in the budget, but in the emotional map between them. When you stop talking about money, it doesn't create freedom, it creates distance. Because every "it was just $50" holds a deeper message. I didn't think you needed to know. And that message echoes. It's not the dollars that hurt. It's the feeling that the partnership became a calculation, that money decisions became solo moves. And in the silence between those transactions, trust erodes, not from spending, but from being left out of the story. Most financial fights start with emotional math. He stood in the doorway watching her unpack another box. New shoes. Branded. She smiled like nothing was wrong. "They were on sale," she said. He didn't ask the price. He already knew it didn't matter. Not the number, the pattern. They had just talked about paying down the credit card, about skipping dinners out for a while, about trying. But now this. Another purchase wrapped in silence. And the worst part wasn't what she bought, it was how she justified it. "I work hard, I deserve it." That phrase hit harder than the bill. The "I deserve it" mindset doesn't feel like sabotage. It feels like self-care, especially after 40, after kids, after a decade of prioritizing everyone else. You give, and at some point, a quiet voice inside whispers, "What about me?" So you buy something, not because it's smart, but because it fills a space that's been hollow for years. It's emotional math, stress, plus exhaustion, permission to spend. And in the moment, it feels right. But afterward, guilt, shame, and a growing need to hide the habit. And on the other side of the equation, the partner who watches it happen, but doesn't know how to speak. Who sees the debt growing, the tension rising, the conversations shrinking? Who swallows their concern to avoid another fight? Who wonders, am I not enough? Why are we not aligned anymore? The pain isn't about the purchase, it's about the separation. One person using money as release, the other seeing it as risk. Both stuck in roles they didn't choose, one compensating, the other withdrawing. Debt doesn't just destroy finances, it destroys emotional equity. Because every purchase that feels like freedom to one can feel like abandonment to the other. And the tragedy? Neither side wants to hurt the other. They're just trying to cope, to reclaim something, to feel okay in a life that feels off balance. But instead of speaking, they spend. Instead of admitting loneliness, they shop. And over time, the credit balance becomes the only thing growing between them. So here's the shift. Before you say, "I deserve it," ask, do we deserve to drift further apart? What if instead of justifying the next expense, you paused and asked your partner, what do you need to feel whole again? Because marriages don't fall apart over shoes. They fall apart over what's left unsaid when the box arrives. When one earns more, both stop speaking honestly. He didn't say anything when she mentioned the conference in Seattle. Just nodded. Of course, go. He could afford the ticket, the hotel, the meals. She couldn't, not on her part-time income, but they never said that out loud, not anymore. In the beginning, they joked about it. You're the spreadsheet, I'm the dreamer. But now, after 16 years of marriage, 2 kids, and completely different earning power, there was a quiet shift. The jokes disappeared. So did the questions. Now she just waited until he offered, or didn't. That's the part no one talks about. Money and voice are deeply connected. In so many marriages, the one who earns more doesn't mean to dominate, but they do. Not by force, by structure. They carry more weight, so they get more say. They make more, so they feel more entitled to decide. And the partner who earns less, slowly, subtly, they begin to shrink. Their suggestions sound softer. Their preferences come second. And their dreams start to feel selfish. It's not always conscious. The person with more income often believes they're being generous. I'm paying for everything. I'm not keeping score. But power doesn't need to be measured to be felt. It shows up in small decisions. Where to eat, when to spend, what's worth it. And the person with less financial input begins to feel like a passenger in a life they helped build, but don't get to steer. Over time, silence replaces intimacy. Not because of malice, but because of exhaustion. It's tiring to keep explaining why your work, though unpaid or lower paid, still matters. It's tiring to ask before spending, to justify wants, to feel the invisible hand of hierarchy in a relationship that was supposed to be equal. So, you say less, want less, expect less, and you call that maturity, but inside, it's grief, for the version of yourself that used to feel free. And the partner earning more? They don't always notice. They think things are fine, organized, efficient, financially sound. But what they don't see is that stability has become silence, that they've built a life where one person is always adjusting, and the other has stopped asking why. So, here's the truth. Income imbalance isn't the problem. But when it turns into voice imbalance, everything changes. Because money doesn't just pay for things, it shapes who feels heard. And marriages don't end when someone stops paying. They end when someone stops speaking. Hiding money is easier than hiding a lover, and hurts just as much. He found out by accident. Sorting through old mail, looking for a tax form, he noticed an envelope tucked behind a drawer. Not hidden well, just enough to suggest it wasn't meant to be seen. Inside, a credit statement, not in his name, a balance he never knew existed. $12,700, quietly growing, quietly ignored, quietly denied. His hands shook, but not because of the number, because of the story behind it. She had borrowed, secretly, and never told him. Not once. Not when she applied, not when she paid the first fee, not when the bills came. And now he wasn't angry. He was alone. Financial infidelity doesn't come with lipstick on a collar. It comes with a receipt you never saw, a loan you never approved, a financial life happening in parallel, beside yours, but never with you. And the pain, it's not in the expense, it's in the decision made alone, in the emotional wall it reveals, in the realization that someone you trust no longer sees you as a partner, but as a potential barrier to their needs, their fears, or their guilt. For the one who hides, it rarely starts with malice. It starts with fear. I didn't want to stress them. I'll fix it before they notice. But secrets don't shrink. They spread. They fill the room with unspoken tension. Eye contact fades. Conversations shorten. The distance isn't measured in dollars. It's measured in how much of yourself you feel safe to reveal. And when money becomes something to hide, it also becomes something that can't hold you together. And for the one who discovers the secret, it's not about the debt. It's about the betrayal of decision, the loss of shared control, the silent rewriting of us into me. Because marriage is about alignment, not just love. And when one person takes the wheel financially, alone, the other starts questioning, What else don't I know? What else am I not trusted with? It's not about control, it's about inclusion. Financial infidelity isn't rare, it's just rarely spoken, but its effects are as deep as any affair. The shame, the blame, the shattered trust. And it takes more than spreadsheets to repair it. It takes a new way of talking, one where fear has no seat at the table. One where "I was scared" is more powerful than "I'm sorry." Because marriages don't collapse when numbers grow. They collapse when secrets do. Some couples fight about money, others use money to avoid fighting. The spreadsheet was always open. Saturdays, after coffee. He called it budget review. She called it the moment she disappeared. Line by line, he explained, where things went off track. Groceries are up again. Your card showed another Target trip. We need to tighten things this month. He wasn't cruel. He wasn't yelling. He was being responsible. But she stopped answering halfway through. Not because she didn't care, but because the budget stopped feeling like a plan and started feeling like a report card. In many marriages, budgeting becomes a ritual of blame, not connection. One partner takes the lead, convinced they're helping. The other gradually shrinks, feeling judged, defensive, unheard. It's not that structure is wrong. It's that structure without shared ownership becomes control. And control rarely invites intimacy. It replaces it with compliance, silence, resentment. Slowly, the budget isn't about building a future, it's about proving who's more disciplined, who's right. Underneath it all is fear. The partner who clings to numbers may not be controlling, they may be scared, of running out, of not being enough, of failure. So they overcorrect. They use the budget as a barrier between them and chaos. And the other partner? They may not be irresponsible. They may just be tired of feeling like a mistake with a price tag. So they detach. They stop checking the app. They start hiding purchases. Not out of rebellion, out of emotional survival. Real financial planning in a marriage doesn't sound like, "We need to cut this." It sounds like, "What feels tight for you right now?" It doesn't start with charts, it starts with empathy, with listening for what money represents, safety, control, guilt, pride, and building from there. Budgets that don't include both voices aren't plans, they're weapons, and eventually, someone decides it's not worth showing up to the meeting anymore. So here's the shift. Budgeting isn't about winning, it's about witnessing. Witnessing each other's fears, needs, dreams, and building something together that feels safe for both. Because couples who fight about money still have something to protect. But couples who use money to avoid the fight? They're already losing something far more valuable. The bills aren't the problem. The silence is. They talk about everything. The kids' schedules, the car's oil change, the neighbor's new fence. Everything except the one thing sitting between them like a locked drawer. Money. Not because it's taboo, not because they don't care, but because somewhere along the way, talking about money started to feel dangerous, like stepping on a crack in the floor that might split the house in two. Every month the bills get paid, mostly, some on time, some late, some with a heavy sigh. They nod to each other across the room. "We're fine," one says. "Just need to tighten up next month." The other agrees, but feels the pressure building in their chest. Because deep down, they both know they're not fine. The numbers are tight. The future is unclear. But bringing it up would mean confronting things they've both been avoiding: fear, guilt, regret, shame. So they go quiet, keep moving, until the marriage becomes a sequence of polite updates and emotional avoidance. Avoidance is the most expensive emotion in a marriage, not because it costs money, but because it costs connection. It keeps couples in parallel routines, pretending things are okay, while resentment slowly collects interest. It starts small. You don't ask how much the car repair really cost. You avoid bringing up the credit card bill. You postpone that conversation about retirement again. Because facing it feels heavier than ignoring it, at least for now. But the cost is cumulative. Financial silence creates emotional distance. One partner feels alone in the stress. The other feels excluded from the truth. And the marriage, once built on dreams and plans, turns into a partnership of crisis management. The moments when you should be asking, "What do we want next?" are replaced by, "How do we get through the month?" And when your relationship becomes a series of survival moves, there's no room left for intimacy, only logistics. The tragedy? Most couples avoid money conversations not because they're careless, but because they're afraid to hurt each other. They think, if we talk about this, we'll fight. If we fight, it means we're broken. But the truth is the opposite. If you don't talk, the break begins anyway. Quietly, invisibly. Until one day someone says, "I don't feel close to you anymore," and neither of you knows exactly when it started. So, here's the truth. You don't need more money to fix the marriage. You need more courage. To sit down, to ask, what scares you most right now? To say, "I don't have the answers, but I want to face them with you." Because the most expensive thing in a marriage isn't the unpaid bill. It's the conversation that never happened. Sometimes we spend for our kids, to avoid dealing with each other. The PlayStation wasn't the problem. Neither were the summer camp payments, or the brand new sneakers bought just because. What hurt the most was how automatic it had become. She spent. He nodded. They both smiled at their son unwrapping a gift he hadn't asked for, and didn't need. For a moment, it felt right, like they were doing something good. But later that night, in bed, they barely touched, barely spoke. And no one brought up the credit card balance. In many marriages after 40, the child becomes the safe space, the project, the reason, the emotional distraction. Couples pour everything into their kids and call it love. And often it is. But sometimes it's also a way out, a way to avoid talking about fear, debt, disconnection. A way to feel generous without having to admit that you don't know how to be generous with each other anymore. Spending becomes a stand-in for intimacy. 4. Communication. For closeness that has slowly slipped away. They say, "We just want to give our children what we didn't have." But sometimes what they really mean is, "I don't know how to reconnect with you, so I'll focus on them instead." The gifts become apologies. The expenses become emotional cover-ups, and the child becomes the emotional bridge, a way to stay in motion without facing the stillness between two adults who stopped reaching for each other. And children? They absorb it all. They learn that love comes with a price tag, that money equals attention, that if something feels broken, you buy your way out of it, even if no one ever says it directly. The deeper cost isn't what's charged to a card, it's what's unspoken in the name of generosity. One partner starts feeling overworked, the other starts feeling irrelevant. But both keep spending because it's for the kids, and that phrase becomes the shield that keeps them from asking the real question. Are we using them to avoid each other? This isn't about blaming. It's about waking up. About noticing when financial giving becomes emotional hiding, about asking not, "Can we afford this?" but, "Why do we need this right now?" Because the most valuable gift your child will ever receive isn't a product. It's parents who still know how to look at each other and say, "We matter too." You don't fix money, you fix how you talk about it. It never starts with numbers. Real repair starts in the pause. The moment someone finally says, "Can we talk?" Not about budgets, not about credit scores, about the tension, the silence, the distance that's been growing between the lines of every transaction. Because money doesn't ruin marriages. The way we carry it, alone, in secret, in fear, does. Most couples wait too long to face it. They think they need a plan, a spreadsheet, a financial advisor. But what they really need is a new way of speaking. Not, where did the money go? But, what are we both afraid of? Not, why did you buy that? But, what were you needing when you did? The goal isn't to correct behavior, it's to reconnect people, because you can balance a budget and still live in emotional deficit, or you can blow a few dollars and still feel like a team. Rewiring your financial story as a couple doesn't happen in one conversation. It happens in small, repeated moments of honesty. It starts when someone says, "I feel ashamed when we talk about this," and the other responds, "I feel scared too." It grows when both partners stop using money as a weapon or a wall. When you stop tracking every receipt and start tracking how you both feel when the bills come in. Real healing sounds like, "I want us to dream again." Can we create a plan where both of us feel safe? I don't want to win at money. I want us to win at this. Because the truth is, couples don't need more financial literacy. They need more emotional fluency. The ability to sit with discomfort, to hear each other's fears without judgment, to see money not as proof of who's right, but as a mirror of how connected you are. So here's the final shift. Don't aim to fix the money. Aim to fix the silence. Don't ask, "What did you spend?" Ask, "What do you want to feel?" Because the health of your finances doesn't just live in numbers, it lives in how safe you are to tell the truth.